When you start something new, your fitness journey, your business, your discipline, your purpose, the first stage always feels like war. Your mind doubts you. Your body resists you. Everything feels heavy, slow, and frustrating. But this isn't a sign to quit. This is the price of entry. Every champion, every high performer, every person who built a life of power and purpose faced the exact same beginning. The only difference: they pushed through the phase where most people quit. You are not being punished. You are being forged. The hardest part is not the work. It's breaking the old version of yourself, the lazy version, the distracted version, the emotional version, the version that wanted comfort more than greatness. And once that version dies, everything becomes easier, not because life changed, but because you did. So the next time it feels difficult, uncertain, or overwhelming, don't retreat. Recognize that this is the moment most people walk away, and the exact moment you must push forward. Hard at first is normal. Hard at first is necessary. Hard at first is your advantage, because it filters out everyone who isn't serious. If you don't quit, you win. It's that simple. It's that brutal. And it's that true. The beginning of anything worth doing is always the hardest, and that difficulty is not a warning sign. It's the proof that you're stepping into territory most people never dare to enter. When something feels uncomfortable, heavy, confusing, or overwhelming at first, that is not because you are incapable. It's because you're rewiring yourself while still living inside the habits and mindset of your old identity. The beginning hurts because you're dragging your past into a place it was never designed to survive. When you take your first steps toward discipline, toward self-respect, toward a goal that actually matters, your brain resists you. It fights for the familiar. It demands the comfort it has been trained to crave. That's why waking up early feels like a battle. That's why your body complains when you start training. That's why starting a business feels uncertain and intimidating. That's why changing your mindset feels unnatural. You are not just starting something new, you are breaking the patterns that have kept you stagnant for years. And breaking anything, especially something inside yourself, comes with friction. Most people misunderstand this. They think difficulty means this isn't for me, or maybe I'm not good enough, or if it was meant to be, it would feel easier. But nothing meaningful feels easy in the beginning. The first workout burns. The first page of a book is slow. The first dollar in business takes forever. The first attempt at discipline feels like your mind is fighting you with every excuse it can manufacture. That's not failure. That's the feeling of transformation. The beginning is where you meet the invisible wall, the wall made of doubt, laziness, and old habits. You're pushing against years of repetition, years of comfort, years of choosing the easy way. That wall is thick. It has been built brick by brick from every moment you avoided discomfort, procrastinated, slept in, promised yourself you'd start tomorrow, or convinced yourself you didn't need to change. And now, for the first time, you're pushing against it. Of course it feels hard. Of course it feels like resistance. But resistance is a sign that you're moving in the right direction. Every master you admire once stood exactly where you are now, looking at the beginning, feeling that same weight, that same uncertainty, that same urge to quit. They were not gifted something you don't have. They weren't born disciplined, confident, fearless, or powerful. They simply endured the part most people run away from. They accepted that the beginning is supposed to hurt. They treated it as proof of growth, not proof of failure. And because they didn't quit, the wall eventually cracked, then broke, and suddenly momentum was on their side. What you must understand is that your brain adapts, your body adapts, your mindset adapts. But none of that adaptation happens without initial discomfort. Think of your muscles. They grow by tearing first. Your mindset works exactly the same way. The struggle you feel in the beginning is the mental version of those micro tears. It's uncomfortable, but it's necessary. It's building you. Every moment you push through it, you are becoming harder to break, harder to distract, and harder to stop. The reason the beginning is so hard is because you're not just learning something new, you're unlearning everything that kept you average. You're replacing convenience with effort. You're replacing excuses with responsibility. You're replacing emotion with discipline. That transition is not painless. It's supposed to test you. In fact, it's designed to filter people. Only those who can endure this initial storm ever taste the results they dream about. The majority quit at the very moment things are starting to change. When you feel tired, when you feel like you're not progressing fast enough, when you feel like it's pointless, that is the exact moment when most people walk away. That is the moment the world separates the ordinary from the extraordinary. The ones who keep going, even when it feels like nothing is happening, unlock an entirely different level of themselves. They realize that it wasn't a task that was difficult. It was overcoming the weaker version of themselves. Once that version starts to die, everything becomes clearer, lighter, and more natural. In the beginning, your discipline is fragile. Your focus is fragile. Your confidence is fragile. But that's exactly why the early stages matter so much. Every time you follow through when it's tough, you are reinforcing a new identity, one that no longer negotiates with weakness, one that doesn't crumble under discomfort, one that understands that greatness is not built in excitement but in difficulty. You're building a version of yourself that can carry immense responsibility, pressure, and ambition, and that version of you cannot be built through ease. So when you feel the hardness of the beginning, when it aches, when it frustrates you, when it feels slow or discouraging, don't interpret it as a sign to step back. Interpret it as the required friction before the breakthrough. The sweat, the confusion, the discipline, the repetition, the constant push despite doubt. This is the part that's sculpting you. This is where your foundation is laid. This is where you prove to yourself that you want it more than you fear it. The beginning is not your enemy. The beginning is your entrance exam. And if you have the strength to endure it, everything that comes after becomes not just possible, but inevitable. Most people never reach their goals not because they lack talent, intelligence, or opportunity, but because they quit during the phase where no results are visible. This silent stage, the stage where you put in effort day after day with nothing to show for it, is where the majority of people fall apart. They assume effort should equal instant success. They assume progress should be obvious. They assume results should arrive as quickly as motivation does. But life doesn't reward the person who starts strong. It rewards the person who remains consistent even when it looks like nothing is happening. There is a stretch of the journey where you're working, grinding, sacrificing, pushing, and nobody can see the change, not even you. Your body doesn't look different yet. Your finances don't reflect your effort yet. Your skills don't feel polished yet. Your progress appears non-existent. You feel stuck between who you were and who you're trying to become. It's in this invisible zone that most people lose their drive. They think silence means failure. They think slow means pointless. They think unseen progress means no progress at all. And that is exactly why they quit. The truth is, progress always starts internally long before it becomes visible externally. When you push yourself to keep showing up, even when the results aren't obvious, you're building the mental wiring that makes long-term success possible. The first transformation is always the mindset, the discipline, the habits. These things cannot be seen in a mirror or a bank account, but they determine everything that comes later. Before you see a single visible result, you're developing resilience, consistency, patience, and emotional control. These qualities might feel small or unnoticed, but they are quietly reshaping the person you are. Most people quit because they are addicted to immediate gratification. They want the reward without the waiting period. They want the transformation without the transition. They want the trophy without the trials. And when things don't move fast enough to feed their ego, they walk away. They don't realize that every master, every winner, every high achiever went through this invisible progress phase and understood its value. They accepted that unseen growth is still growth. They trusted the process even when the process seemed silent. The invisible phase is a test. It evaluates your commitment, not your desire. Anyone can desire success. Anyone can talk about changing their life. Anyone can get excited, make promises, or start something new. But that excitement fades, and in its place comes the part where you must show up with discipline instead of emotion. This is where the world sees who is serious and who is simply interested. The invisible stage is the divide between people who say, "I want it," and people who prove it through their actions. You might wake up every day and feel like you're not moving. You might feel like your effort doesn't matter. But the truth is, every repetition you do in the dark becomes strength in the light. Every disciplined day compounds. You're creating momentum you can't yet detect. It's like planting seeds, nothing sprouts immediately, but underground everything is changing. Roots are forming, foundations are growing, and the moment will come when those roots break the surface and suddenly everyone sees what you've been quietly building. Most people never get to that breakthrough moment because they stop watering the seed long before it has a chance to grow. The people who succeed are not the ones who never doubt themselves. They are the ones who keep moving despite doubt. They don't let the scale, the view count, the sales numbers, the lack of applause, or the silence of early efforts dictate their commitment. They understand that results are never linear. There will be days where you feel unstoppable and days where you feel invisible. There will be weeks where everything clicks and weeks where it feels like nothing is working. Those who endure these fluctuations become unstoppable because they create a level of inner strength that doesn't depend on constant validation. Most people quit right before something shifts. They quit the gym before their body starts responding. They quit the business right before their first big client appears. They quit the content creation grind right before their first video explodes. They quit the new habit right before it becomes natural. They quit right before the compound effect kicks in. This is why the world feels like it belongs to a small percentage of people. Because only a small percentage can survive the quiet phase. The phase with no applause, no recognition, no obvious payoff. Think about how many times people restart something after quitting too early. They go to the gym for 2 weeks, see no change, quit, and then complain that nothing ever works for them. They try a new skill, struggle, quit, then see someone else succeed and wonder what that person had that they didn't. The answer is always the same. They stayed in the invisible stage long enough to reach the visible one. That's it. That's the difference. The winners were not better, they were simply patient enough to let the process unfold. You separate yourself instantly, not by being more talented, not by being more inspired, not by being more skilled, but by refusing to quit during the phase where most people lose faith. You become rare when you remain consistent during the silent season. You become powerful when you keep going despite lack of evidence. You become unstoppable when you trust your effort more than you trust your emotions. The invisible stage is your advantage, not your punishment. It's the filter the world uses to separate the committed from the casual, the strong from the weak, the destined from the distracted. If you can survive the stage where most people quit, you will eventually live the life most people will never experience. Motivation is a powerful spark, but it is not a foundation you can build a life on. It comes and goes like the weather, strong one day, weak the next, sometimes completely absent when you need it most. People rely on motivation because it feels good. It creates excitement. It creates energy. It creates the illusion that change will be easy. But excitement is temporary. Energy fades, emotion shifts, and if the only time you take action is when you feel inspired, then your entire life becomes controlled by the randomness of your emotional state. That's why discipline matters more than motivation, because discipline does not care how you feel. Discipline is the force that keeps you moving long after motivation disappears. There will be mornings when you wake up and every part of you wants to stay comfortable. Days when the task feels too heavy. Moments when your mind whispers excuses so convincing they sound like truth. Motivation cannot save you in those moments. It won't wake you up earlier. It won't push you to train. It won't help you study. It won't push you through the discomfort that real progress demands. But discipline steps forward when motivation shuts down. Discipline is the agreement you make with yourself that your goals matter more than your mood. It is the commitment that your future self deserves effort, even when your current self wants to escape it. Most people chase motivation like it's fuel, not realizing it burns out quickly. They watch videos, scroll for inspiration, wait for a perfect moment to start hoping for a feeling that pushes them into action. But the people who truly transform their lives don't wait to feel ready. They act regardless of readiness. They move regardless of convenience. They show up even when their mind tries to negotiate every reason not to. This is the difference between interest and commitment. Motivation belongs to the interested. Discipline belongs to the committed. When discipline becomes your foundation, life becomes more stable. You don't depend on inspiration to dictate your progress. You don't rely on temporary emotion to determine your behavior. You create routines that pull you forward even when your energy is low. You develop systems that allow you to grow consistently. You build a version of yourself who follows through simply because that's who you are, not because the feeling of motivation temporarily boosted you. Discipline creates identity, and identity determines destiny. Deep down, most people know what they need to do. They know what habits to build, what distractions to remove, what routines to follow, what sacrifices to make. But knowing is meaningless without action, and action is impossible if you're waiting to feel like taking it. The moment you stop relying on motivation is the moment real progress begins. Because motivation whispers, do it when you feel like it. Discipline commands, do it because it must be done. And everything meaningful in life is built on the second voice. Think about it. No one becomes strong by training only when they feel motivated. No one builds a business by working only on inspired days. No one masters a skill by practicing only when the mood is right. These achievements come from repetition, from consistency, from showing up again and again, especially on the days when you don't want to. Discipline lays bricks when motivation takes breaks. And over time, enough bricks build an unshakable structure. There will always be moments when you feel tired, unmotivated, discouraged, or overwhelmed. These moments test your character more than your ability. Anyone can act when conditions are perfect. Anyone can move when they feel unstoppable. But the people who succeed are the ones who move even when they feel nothing. They don't wait for sparks. They create fire through effort. They show up without applause, without excitement, without emotional hype. They show up because they understand that consistency beats intensity, and small actions done daily beat bursts of passion that disappear within hours. Discipline is not about being harsh with yourself. It's about being loyal to your future. It's about choosing long-term reward over short-term comfort. It's about understanding that the obstacles you face today are strengthening you for the life you want tomorrow. Every time you follow through when you don't feel like it, you become stronger. Every time you break an excuse, you build confidence. Every time you push through resistance, you become the type of person who cannot be stopped easily. And once discipline becomes a habit, you become dangerous, not to others, but to the version of yourself that used to settle for less. Motivation can inspire you to start, but only discipline can ensure you finish. You can have all the enthusiasm in the world, but if you quit the moment motivation fades, you'll be starting over for the rest of your life. You will never build momentum, never break old patterns, never access your full potential. The beginning will always feel like the beginning because you never stay long enough to reach the breakthrough. Discipline is the bridge between I want it and I have it. It is the path that turns dreams into reality, visions into achievements, and potential into results. There will come a point where discipline stops feeling like a punishment and starts feeling like power. You will notice that the tasks you once avoided now feel natural. The habits that used to drain you now energize you. The struggles that once intimidated you now feel manageable. That transformation doesn't happen because of motivation. It happens because you repeatedly showed up until your identity changed. And once your identity changes, everything else follows. When you choose discipline, you choose growth. You choose strength. You choose consistency. You choose to become the kind of person who succeeds not by chance, but by design. And that decision is worth more than any burst of motivation you will ever feel. The greatest battle you will ever fight is not against the world, not against circumstances, not against other people. It's against the older version of yourself that refuses to let go. This version of you is built from years of habits, fears, excuses, and comfort. It has a personality, a voice, a routine, and a set of beliefs that you've repeated so many times they feel like truth. When you decide to change, that old identity doesn't simply step aside. It grips you tightly, clings to you, and resists with everything it has because change threatens its existence. You are not fighting laziness. You're fighting an identity that has survived by avoiding discomfort. You are not fighting procrastination. You're fighting a version of yourself that learned to escape pressure. You are not fighting doubt. You're fighting a mind that has been trained to play small. And until you defeat that old version, no external victory will ever last. When you wake up and don't want to move, that's the old you negotiating for control. When you promise yourself you'll start tomorrow, that's the old identity pulling the strings. When you make excuses that sound reasonable and logical, that's the old mindset trying to survive. Transformation is not a smooth, inspirational journey. It's a brutal internal war where the old self fights desperately to stay alive. It whispers, rest a little. It suggests, you've done enough today. It tells you, take a break, you deserve it. It convinces you that your goals can wait, that discipline is too extreme, that hard work is optional. That voice isn't you. It's the outdated version of you that fears growth because growth means death for it. Every decision you make is a vote for which version of yourself stays in control. Every time you push through resistance, you weaken the old identity. Every time you give in to excuses, you strengthen it. The battle is not dramatic, it's subtle. It happens in small moments that most people overlook. The moment you choose the gym over comfort, the moment you focus instead of scrolling, the moment you wake up with purpose instead of hitting snooze, these decisions seem insignificant, but they are shaping who you will become. People think they are fighting laziness, but laziness is just a symptom. The real battle is deeper. It's a battle of identities. The old version of you knows your weaknesses intimately. It knows exactly how to tempt you. It knows what thoughts to drop into your mind to slow you down. It knows which fears to trigger to keep you stagnant. It knows that if it can delay you for even 5 minutes, it can often stop you completely. This version of you is clever, persistent, and familiar. And that is why so many people fail. They underestimate how hard it is to kill the outdated self. They assume discipline alone will overpower years of comfortable habits. They expect motivation to drown out deeply ingrained mental patterns. But those patterns don't die overnight. They fade through consistent action that directly opposes them. You grow the moment your actions stop matching the identity you're trying to escape. When you do what the old version of you avoided, you break its power. When you act in alignment with the person you want to become, you strengthen your future identity. At first, this feels like constant conflict, like you're dragging yourself through tasks your mind is resisting aggressively. But this friction is the evidence that the transformation is real. If it were easy, it would mean the old identity wasn't losing anything. The struggle is the sign that you are winning. Some people spend their entire lives attached to an outdated version of themselves. They want a new life but cling to old habits. They want success but refuse to sacrifice the comfort that keeps them average. They want freedom but stay loyal to the mindset that limits them. They think change means doing more. But real change means becoming someone different internally. And becoming someone different requires letting the current version of yourself die. The death of old beliefs. The death of old routines. The death of old excuses. You cannot carry both identities into your future. One must dominate. The future version of you, the disciplined one, the strong one, the focused one already exists in potential. But it cannot emerge until you stop feeding the weaker version. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, you pull the future self closer. Every time you swallow your excuses and execute, you give that new version power. And once the new identity starts to dominate, everything becomes easier, not because life gets easier, but because you no longer sabotage yourself. The internal resistance weakens, the battle becomes quieter, and the new version begins to feel natural. That is the moment when the transformation becomes permanent. The world doesn't stop you. Other people don't stop you. Circumstances don't stop you. The real enemy has always been the internal identity that thrives on comfort and fears growth. And if you don't actively fight that version of yourself, it will quietly run your entire life. It will choose your habits, dictate your emotions, limit your ambition, and decide your future. But when you fight it consciously, when you refuse to let it control your decisions, you dismantle its power piece by piece. In the end, every major breakthrough in your life will come from defeating the older version of you. Not from luck, not from external opportunity, but from the internal victory that changes what you expect from yourself. When that change happens, the world has no choice but to change with you. In the end, everything you desire, every dream, every achievement, every breakthrough comes down to a single truth. You must become the person capable of carrying the life you want. Not the person ruled by excuses, emotions, or comfort. Not the version of you that hesitates at difficulty, but the version forged through discipline, consistency, and unshakeable belief. The hard beginning was never meant to stop you, it was meant to shape you. The invisible progress stage was never meant to discourage you, it was designed to test your commitment. All the struggles, the doubt, the silence, the grind, They are the raw materials from which a stronger identity is built. Every great transformation begins internally before it ever becomes visible externally. And you are in the exact stage where separation happens, where the average fall back and the exceptional push forward. Winning is not complicated, it's simply rare, because so few have the endurance to stay in the fight long enough to see results. Most people quit when the path gets difficult, not realizing that difficulty is part of the initiation. Most people walk away when the results aren't immediate, not understanding that every seed grows in darkness before it breaks the surface. And most people lose to a version of themselves they should have outgrown years ago. But you don't have to. You can choose to be the exception, the one who outlasts the doubt, the one who ignores the excuses, the one who keeps moving when everyone else stops. Success doesn't belong to the fastest or the luckiest. It belongs to the one who refuses to quit when nothing seems to be working. Every time you push yourself, you're casting a vote for the future version of you. Every disciplined day becomes a brick in the foundation of a life you can be proud of. Every moment you choose growth over comfort strengthens your identity and weakens the old patterns that used to control you. You are not failing just because it's hard. You are evolving. You are not stagnant just because results aren't visible. You are building a foundation that cannot be shaken. You are not behind. You are in the exact phase every champion had to endure before the breakthrough you haven't seen yet. And if you keep going, if you stay loyal to the process even when your emotions betray you, you will reach a point where the struggle makes sense and the progress becomes undeniable. So don't slow down. Don't step back. Don't abandon the journey when it's finally shaping you into someone capable of achieving more than you ever believed. The life you want is not waiting somewhere far away. It's waiting on the other side of your endurance. The version of you that conquers challenges, that stays disciplined, that never gives up is already being built right now through every difficult moment you survive. Keep pushing, keep showing up, keep fighting for the identity you deserve. Because once you win the war within yourself, the world outside has no choice but to follow. Keep going. Your breakthrough is coming, and when it arrives, everything will make sense. Thank you for watching. Your time, your focus, and your commitment to growth mean everything. If this message sparked something inside you, even the smallest shift, carry it forward. Don't let it fade. Use it. Build with it. Transform with it. Remember, your journey doesn't end here. Every day is another chance to rise, improve, and become the strongest version of yourself. Until next time, stay disciplined, stay focused, and never stop pushing forward. Thank you and goodbye.